I want to thank the U.S. Ukraine Foundation, the incredible leadership of Nadia and Bob McConnell. This organization didn't exist 50 years ago in our country, and the work that it's done at the grassroots level in Ukraine is stellar. The development of new leaders, and I will tell you a secret, I am a Democrat, they are Republican, but we understand what liberty's all about, all right? And we figure out a way to work together. I don't think we've had any disagreements over our 3 decades of friendship, and we've seen much progress. I also want to thank the Sun Foundation, its officers, its staff, its volunteers, because you didn't exist 40 years ago either. You are a rather new organization, but in partnership with the U.S. Ukraine Foundation, as we have found friends in Ukraine that treat people with respect and aspire to the founding principles of our republic: liberty, equality, and justice for all. You are sitting in a building that didn't exist 40 years ago. As our country has expanded, we needed more space to accommodate the growing population of our country and the world. So America is a nation about progress and about new horizons. If you go to the top of the Capitol, you will see a statue. That is the Statue of Freedom, and it is a woman. And she is looking east. She is looking east toward the rising sun. I just get you to reflect on that as you conduct your program today. And you are in the new Capitol Visitors Center, and there's a special hall across the way that was named by Jesse Jackson Jr., the son of one of our preeminent civil rights leaders in our country, who stood at the side of Dr. Martin Luther King when he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee during the 1960s. And Jesse Jackson Jr., a congressman then from Chicago, stood up and he said, when that new visitor center is built, I want the main hall to be called Emancipation Hall. And it is. And I thought, 2 centuries after the founding of our republic, we are still a nation becoming and a nation that is understanding its own history. And so as I look at Ukraine and the possibility of what Ukraine could be, we all stand as molders of the future progress for Ukraine. The title of this gathering focuses on sounding the alarm for the 5 million people in Ukraine, including the 1.7 million children in need of assistance. Today's gathering is really a ministry of hope, and we are all the vessels of that hope. And I am proud to stand with you in this effort. I am so glad you're here. I am the chief author of the Ukraine Freedom Support Act, which passed last year. And writing words are very easy. Passing legislation is much more difficult, but then implementing it is even harder. And I would encourage you to work with the ambassador, to work with our ambassador also in Ukraine, Ambassador Pyatt, to make sure that every word happens. And I say to the Americans who are here, you know what diligence requires. And so I would encourage you to read the bill, and then I'm going to give you some names, people who can help us, help the U.S. Ukraine Foundation and Sun make that bill a reality, certainly on the humanitarian front. There are some members of Congress who really do fulfill their duties. One of them is the chairman of our Defense Committee in the House, our Defense Appropriations Committee, Rodney Frelinghuysen of New Jersey. Is there anybody here from New Jersey? Good. All right, Rodney is very important. He cares deeply about Ukraine. He is a Republican. I am a Democrat. I have the highest respect for him. I am glad the people of New Jersey elected him. And he is here. He helps us fund the programs that are in our defense bill. Why do I say that? Because let's say that we are able to amass vast humanitarian shipments for Ukraine. How are we going to send them? Who's going to pay for the shipment of those goods? In the Ukraine Freedom Support Act and in our regular defense budget, and I am on the Defense Committee, along with Rodney, we have placed money for our Department of Defense, working in cooperation with our State Department to fund shipments under a program we call Partnership for Peace, which technically is a National Guard program, and at the moment, the state of California is the state that is formally partnered with Ukraine for a whole host of purposes, including the training of Ukrainian soldiers, and we are about the task, as you know, of training those who serve in the Ukrainian military. It's being done at a very small level. It's under 1,000 troops already. But we are committed to try to help with the improvement of the military posture of Ukraine. But we have to do it carefully because we don't want any further invasions or incursions in Ukraine. But under that program, it is theoretically possible for us to load planes, our big cargo planes, with goods for Ukraine and land them at the place the ambassador tells us. And we have to work with our military and your military in Ukraine. And we have to think about how, under the Partnership for Peace, what we send, when we send it, how we deliver it. So there's a lot of organizational effort that has to go into this. In addition to that, for those of you who aren't from California, under the laws of our country, we can ask for a waiver. For example, I'm from Ohio. Ohio is partnered with Hungary. And for many years, before Hungary became a part of NATO, and I'm not suggesting Ukraine be a part of NATO, unless she really wants to be. Right now, I don't think politically that would be a good idea, though someday, maybe down the road, there could be a set of relationships with European military leaders and so forth and forces. But we can ask for something called a waiver, and other states can participate, like Ohio, in shipments to Ukraine. So imagine, as my community in Ohio says to me, let's take Cleveland. Marcy, what can we do? What kind of medical equipment does Ukraine need? I had the Mercy Catholic Hospital system of my entire state. My state has 11 million people in it. The head of the hospital systems came to see me and they said, Marcy, what can we send as the major Catholic hospital system in Ohio of equipment, of supplies to Ukraine? I said, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to be seeing the Vicar General of the Catholic hospital system soon in Washington, D.C., and I will ask him that question. So Ohioans are ready to help. We can't take care of all of Ukraine, but we can take care of part of what is needed. And all we have to do is ask the California National Guard for a waiver so we can also ship with our big KC-130s, our big planes that carry, and we do it as a training mission through our National Guard, all right? So as I think about this, how would we do this? And I think to myself, as Americans, we can't be small. We have to think about using the power of the awesome power of this country to help Ukraine at her critical moment, make it through this winter and next spring and summer. And each of you has your special knowledge, and we need to link it because your hope is to get help to those who are serving those right at the grassroots level. And that's what America should be about, justice for all, liberty for all. So I wanted to just encourage you in your Ministry of Hope today and the program that is going on to think about the incredible possibilities we have to provide humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, but we need to organize it well. Let me, for those Americans who are interested in history or who may be old enough to remember this, 2 years after World War II ended, on the day after my birthday, something great happened in this country, something called the Berlin Airlift. And at the time, for those of you who know anything about history and the history of Europe, Russia blockaded the ability of 2 million people in Germany to have food, to have fuel, and they cordoned them off. And the United States of America worked with the Great Britain and the nation of France to do something that the world had never seen before. We airlifted goods into Germany, and exhausted Europe and exhausted America, having won World War II did one last push. And that's how the world ended up with the Berlin Wall. If you think back to history, if you haven't read about the Berlin airlift, as I think about what we can do for Ukraine today, I think back to the history of the Berlin airlift and what the free nations of the world were able to do. And I will also say this to our Ukrainian guests, and I'll give you a little bit of homework. If you don't know the American scholar, Dr. Timothy Snyder of Yale University, you should. He has written a book called Bloodlands, Europe Between Hitler and Stalin. It is world class. It is so good I can't tell you how good it is. And he talks about Ukraine and Sovietized Ukraine. He places the entire history of the European continent in the most complete frame I have ever seen. He has a network of scholars, including in Ukraine, who are helping to piece together the history of that part of the world that was so scarred in the last century. And I'll tell you how good he is. And I recommend you read that. And it's written in several languages. It's written in Ukrainian, it's written in Russian, it's written in Polish, it's written in English. Even I, who thought I knew something about Ukraine, he taught me that in the church where our grandmother was married, before her family left for America at the turn of the 20th century, St. Anne's in Południa. All the times I had gone back there to that church, no one had ever told me that 168 citizens of then Sovietized Ukraine were murdered in the basement of that church. 168. And I said to him, I called Dr. Snyder up, I said, Doctor, how did you know that? He said, because when they opened up the Soviet archives, there were many records that became available, and our network of scholars found it. I said, oh my goodness, no priest has ever told me that. No one I've ever visited in that village. We delivered blood pressure cuffs to the hospital in that town many years ago. No one ever told me. So the American people, including myself, still remain very naive about where Ukraine is, what its history is. We have much to learn. And the reason is, and I'll share this with you, American soldiers never made it east of Germany during World War II, which is the generation that should have taught us, because Stalin was technically our ally. Think about this. So when our students went to school, America was working through this historical conflict between wanting to defeat Hitler and wanting to defeat the tyrannical regime in Russia, Sovietized, in the Soviet Union. But our people never, it was Stalin that, so-called, in quotes, liberated the camps east of Germany. So the American people still, in our own history, in the way we were taught, have not fully accommodated what happened in Ukraine. It's even missing from our studies. So last night when we saw Winter of Fire, I thought, wait till the American people see this. I thank Netflix for that incredible, powerful, exhausting, compelling, and inspiring work. You will teach people around the world of where Ukraine is, what is its history, what are its current challenges. So do not underestimate the importance of your being here and your ability to teach your friends, your colleagues, the American people of what this challenge is and to place it in an historical context. Thank you to the U.S. Ukraine Foundation and the Sun Foundation for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you very much. The blacksmiths of Ivano-Frankivsk have made these bells, Ukraine's Bell of Freedom, that we give in appreciation on behalf of the people of Ukraine for those who are supporting Ukraine.
This will go right on my desk because I have very, very bright prospects in my heart for Ukraine. We must work together and we must make this happen. Thank you, Nadia McConnell. Thank you.